Oh, that's ISO?
Rack it up, I gotta build up the bank to make me a safe house. Shake it up, she got her hands on her knees and she bringing the cake out. Smoke it up, I got some gas, some packs, I'm up in the greenhouse.
So, mate, we've just been talking about digital world and technology and how it's done my fucking head in for the last 30 minutes. And I think it's probably a good topic to start on because you are the self-proclaimed digital nomad.
Yes. Yeah, I am indeed. Yeah.
Mate,
Yeah.
the dream,
Well,
right?
do you know, there's a lot of positives, but then there are definitely like some downsides. I love it. But what I've realized in being a digital nomad for the last few years is that as long as I can find some form of a routine. So when I get somewhere, I'm like, right, gym, first thing, gym, co-working space. This is going to sound ridiculous. Barbers, supermarket and then at least one or two cafes that I can get a good coffee. And if I find that, and if it's within walking distance and I can find that, you could plonk me in Rio, in Sydney, in Mumbai, doesn't matter where, but as long as I've got those things, then me and my partner, we can sort of like, we feel like we can get into a routine. Without, if one of those things are missing, all hell breaks loose. It's like, oh no, now I feel like a digital nomad.
And did you find your coffee the other morning?
Did, mate. I did. I had to go a bit further than I wanted to, though, mate. As you'll have seen in Mallorca, in the part of Mallorca that I'm in, where my friend lives, it's I don't know what it is. People just like get up really late and start really late, and it was like 10 a.m. and it's like, why are all the cafes closed? It's like 10 a.m. in the morning. But I had to go a bit further. I had to get in the car and drive to go and pick one up, which, you know. Yeah, I know, right? And the world of convenience we live in, we're like, oh, you had to drive to go and get a coffee. Yeah, but I did get my coffee fix, mate. Yeah, all the world was put back on its current trajectory.
And what's the coffee of choice? This is a big question. It's going to define you as a character, as a person. What are you going for in the morning?
Do you know what? I'm gonna this depends on country, and I mean this is absolutely no disrespect to certain countries, but I love a really well done oat milk flat white. Now certain places you can go to where you can get a really good oat flat white, and then there are places like Spain and Italy where like the concept of alternatives to milk have not quite fully caught on yet, so they have pretty bad oat milk, so it's like just regular latte or regular flat white cafe con leche. So not exactly like a cortado with a twist and an ounce of this and an ounce of that, but probably not like an Americano, mate. I'm probably like halfway between. What about you? What's your coffee choice?
You know what? It's been developed over a period of time, Dan. So I used to be the instant coffee guy. I'm never going to go for the bean. I'm never going to grind. And now I've got the full espresso machine. I've got different jugs for different types of milk art that I'm going to be doing. I'm looking at roasting my own bean. It just escalates. And I think it's the same with everything, right? As soon as you get a little bit of this is better than before, you just want it to be better.
And do you know what? The days of my partner, she like would get when we first moved in together a few years ago, and she'd get really upset that I would have Nescafe. Like I'd just get Nescafe, you know, like I was okay with Nescafe. And then she's done to me what has happened with you, and now it's like not only is it, you know, grinding the beans, but it's what type of beans. And you're in the supermarket and you're like, oh, there's like various types of beans here from various different continents in different parts of the world, and then there's the rating on the front, and you know, when you start learning about, well, what does 4 out of 10 intensity mean, and what does 8 out? Yeah, when you go down that path, it's hard to sort of get back out again.
Just as a bit of a claim to fame, I do have my own coffee blend. So I went to a coffee roasting experience, and you get to put all the different beans together. And I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but this is a exquisite coffee bean. It's unbelievable. Cost me an astronomical amount per month, but it's worth it. But mate, so digital nomad, but I guess the first question is, as a digital nomad, you know, you've got Fortis, and I know you as the boss from Fortis. But if you want to, take this time to give it a bit of a plug, what is Fortis, and why did you do it?
So Fortis is effectively, we're a business that helps personal trainers and coaches do various things, but ultimately grow their revenue, grow their client base, and like widen their impact. So to work with more clients, we do that through business coaching, mentorship, community, and then also sort of software as well. We've got a few different angles on that. And if I think back to when we first started, the honest answer was we started out as a completely different business that did a very different thing. If you know the story, we had a different name. We were looking after a different set of customers because we, in the middle of the crazy lockdown, I personally saw lots of fitness instructors. When the lockdown happened, everybody went online and people were doing sort of like, you remember the days of Instagram lives and Zoom classes and all of those things. And it seemed to me like there was a gap in the market for a platform where an instructor, whether it was yoga, Pilates, HIIT, strength, to be able to deliver classes and take payment and have subscriptions and have an on-demand library. And we saw that very early on in the lockdown. So I got together with my two co-founders and we sort of like created a tech solution that worked for class instructors. And that was how the first concept was born. And in doing that, we learned two things. One was how important sort of social media and marketing and sales were to the instructors we worked with, because we were on a commission basis back then. So the more we helped instructors grow their business, the more revenue we generated a business. So it was like a win-win. And that kind of like how we got into the world of helping instructors and helping fitness professionals build and grow their businesses. And then when the world opened up again in April 2021 and the gyms reopened, and the supply and demand for what we created, just like, I mean, you only have to look at this, like the stock price of Peloton and what happened to companies like Mirror and all of these things. And we saw this change in the industry. And at that point, we had a big group of coaches who we work with, personal trainers, that were sort of going from the frying pan into the fire, because they were going back to the gym, but the problem was still there. Like, well, how do I get clients? How do I grow? How do I build like an online element to my business? So at that point, we pivoted and we exclusively started working with trainers and coaches back in the summer of 2021. And, since then we've sort of, worked with thousands of trainers now around the world, and we're learning all the time, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, how can we help, how can we support. So that's kind of how we sort of got into it. And we're a business at the end of the day, a business of a team of people, and the industry seems to have quite a lot of individuals, like guru type characters, and we came at it from a different viewpoint of like, can we be the trusted brand that help as many trainers build and grow their businesses, as we can. So that's sort of like how it all kicked off. And I've been doing it for a while now, and I absolutely love it.
Well, I mean, I've been working with you guys for, I think it's 6 to 8 months, I think. And I've said it on other podcasts, but that's the reason why my business has taken off and I've been able to do it full time, because, you can be a great coach, but unless you've got the systems and support in place and the marketing strategies and, the information on how to actually sell yourself, you could be the best coach in the world, but if you can't market and you can't sell, you're not going to be doing it as a business for very long, right?
100%. And that was the bit that we saw and thought, well, how can we ensure, because no one likes to look at the world and think, look at that sort of like influencer over there peddling shite, like talking rubbish, but because they're really good with sales and marketing, they're pulling in clients that are probably getting the wrong advice, the wrong experience, probably not getting results. And yet there's amazing trainers and coaches that, would be able to get fantastic results and do, but without the sales and marketing, aren't able to sort of work with a wider group. So, when we looked at that, we looked at companies like Lenus as an example, who exclusively work with fitness influencers and celebrities, mostly. And we thought, well, we can do that, but we can do it for great coaches and great trainers, and try and work with the right people. So that's, yeah, it's great to hear it's been working for you. I know you've had a great time working with Nora, and great to see your success in the last several months. And the more awesome coaches and trainers who are passionate about helping people that we can help, it's like a win-win-win, really. It's like we win as a business, trainer and coach wins, and then client wins as well. So it's like, if it works, it's like a virtuous circle, really. There's no downside.
Yeah, and I always fall back to the old premises. Every coach needs a
Yeah.
coach, so, and that can work for many different reasons, right? I've got a coach for my physique development, but areas that I was lacking in was the business side. So I was like, well, why don't I get a fucking coach to help me with that? And then that's where you guys came in, and it just, like many other coaches that you've worked with, that's when it just takes off. But you wasn't a coach yourself, right?
No.
You've had your own experiences, but you was in another field. You was in just purely marketing.
So
What was that?
my background's, so it's how I got into this. So I originally started way many years than I would care to admit as a professional football player, and that's where I sort of applied my trade, and was really fortunate to be, I managed to sit on the bench in the Premier League, and I'll shamelessly plug that I was on a FIFA game at one point. And
Hang on a minute. What team?
Open Wanderers, FIFA 07, if anyone wants to go and dig that game out.
I'm going to see if I can find the FIFA 07 photo of Dan the man.
Do you know what the interesting thing is about back then? Because they didn't have pictures of anybody back then. It was like, for the younger players and stuff, you get like silhouettes and stuff. So when you actually go onto Google and you type in like Dan Stott, because back then I went by Danny, it was Danny Stott, and the pictures, there's like a few pictures on Google, but most of them are just like silhouettes. So it used to be like silhouetted. And in Football Manager, which I was in for 2 years, that was my favorite game as a kid growing up. So being on Football Manager was everything to me. And I would go on and manage Manchester United and then by myself, and then the fans would be like, why has the manager bought this terrible player from Bolton Wanderers and brought him in? And every time my height was different on every game. So like, because it was because they didn't know the statistics of the younger players, it was like I guess it was automatically generated each time. So every time I would log in, I'd be a different height, I'd have different statistics, but I was always rubbish. Like every single time, it was like there's never a time I logged on and somehow I was a wonder kid. I was always rubbish. So that was sort of like I did that. Then I went to uni in the States and did the whole sort of like American college, playing with a soccer scholarship. I was super lucky to do that, and then went on and so I had this like sporting background and very much into my physical fitness as an athlete, and then went into my corporate career at 21 because I didn't quite make it as a footballer. It didn't work out. I was semi-professional, and I got a job. My first job, realistic, our second job, was as a salesperson at Just Eat, which at the time nobody knew. It was a tiny little company with a handful of people, and I didn't really, to be honest, it was a good salary with a company car, and it was a sales job. And I took it, and then I just got so lucky because it was 2010. And then within 4 years, the company had gone from a small company to floating on the London Stock Exchange for $2.7 billion pound valuation, sorry, I think. And I'd managed to go from being an entry-level sales rep to like an international sales like director level. And all within 4 years, because the company grew and I grew with the company. So as we expanded into different countries all around the world, I would get to go to these different countries and either build the sales teams or take the sales teams that existed and sort of like refurbish them. Sometimes that included firing everyone and starting again, or sometimes it was like, just tinkering around the edges. It just depended on the local market, and had this phenomenal experience there for 6 years where I basically got like probably 25 years worth of, professional experience condensed into a very short time frame. And I did that for 6 years. But the thing that I I loved the most was that all of my teams around the world were the ones walking into restaurants and takeaways in every single market. And restaurant owners and takeaway owners are sort of small business owners that typically love their food, passionate about their customers, passionate about things inside their shop, but didn't really enjoy the finances, the marketing, the sales, the margins, all of those things. I loved working with that group of people. And then, like, fast forward to sort of when we started Fortis, and I'd identified another group of amazing people who were passionate about what they did. But again, the business building things around the edges weren't really supported with. So coming back, if I go back just a little bit. So after Just Eat, went to another company. It was a startup in the health tech space, and we grew and scaled that really successfully over 4 years. But I'd always done it for somebody else. There was other people's companies, and I'd seen these two amazing journeys, and I'd been fortunate to be part of them. And at the time, 2018, by this point, my health had taken a massive decline. I'd gone from a professional football player to flying around the world, eating in airports, eating in hotels, like probably boozing more than I should have, going to the gym, but not really knowing what to do. So I'd kind of like got to a point where I was squidgy around the edges and sort of like wasn't in the best of shapes. And I reached out to a guy who I used to play football with because he was showing up on social media. He was showing that he was sort of like helping people lose weight. Reached out to him and hired, I guess, or started working with my first online coach as a client from the client side, and had this 10-month transformation from squidgy around the edges. I'll have to show you the picture of the before. It was definitely squidgy around the edges.
Oh, well,
Oh, you
yeah,
you got it.
It'll be here.
You'll see that. So that was, and then I had this 10-month transformation and was in like men's health condition, like the best condition I'd ever been in my entire life, even as a professional athlete. And what I experienced as a client was that this individual, Mark, shout out Mark, he changed my life in so many ways. I can't put a value on it, because what it did for me was, like, one is it gave me all my confidence back that I'd sort of lost physically. It put me on a trajectory of being into health and fitness, which, ultimately landed me starting a company in the fitness industry. But it gave me like so many different things around the way that I felt, the way that I acted, everything around it. So when we first started Fortis, I know how valuable it is what coaches do every single day, because I've experienced it on the other side. So when we get to sit down with coaches and help them understand their value and understand their worth and understand the impact that they have, it comes from a place of knowing that and being that person and just saying, like, don't worry about upping your prices, because you're still 5% of what you should be charging with the results that you get. Because it's very hard to put a financial attachment on how you feel when you've gone through working with a coach and you've got to the goal that you've got to. But having gone through it myself, I can like really categorically say, look, I know that you are delivering life-changing service. And that's how we want to position everything. So yeah, a bit long-winded, but that was sort of like my way of like, understanding the fitness industry and understanding working with a coach before moving into and setting up Fortis.
I mean, I think it's brilliant how people find their way. You never set out to start Fortis as a coaches company, whereas I never set out to be an online coach. My trajectory was I was going to be a paramedic for the rest of my life. I was going to be doing that, and then I realized I always had that passion for fitness, and then eventually, I wanted to help people with the health and do that through fitness, and it kind of you just find your way. But as somebody that found the value in transforming the physique and finding the confidence back and all the rest of it, how long do you think it took you to find that value? So you're going to go through that sucky phase at the beginning where you're going to have to start training. It sucks. You're looking at your nutrition. When did you start thinking, okay, this is like the best investment I've ever made?
I'd probably say there was a moment, and I'd probably say it was about 4 months in. I would say about 4 months in, because the first 3 months I was losing weight, but I was losing weight, so I was looking thinner, and that it probably went through a phase where I was maybe like, aesthetically, or the way I looked at it, I was probably like looking worse in a way for a couple of months, and then I can't. It must have been a week, and it went from like losing weight, and then definition appeared, and as soon as definition appeared, I was like, yes, and then and then it's like I've got quite a obsessive. I've got like an addictive and obsessive personality. So it's like, for me, it's like probably the last thing I needed to see was definition, because I was like, right, that's it, mental health condition. Here we go. But it was probably about 4 months, and I'd say those first few months, it was the smallest things that I valued the most. So the biggest change for me was the step count, and I did it like walked on an incline treadmill is how I did it. And then I stopped getting the tube to work because I was living in London. By the time I started the program, I was living in London, so I stopped getting the tube and started walking to work. I'd do a 10-minute walk incline at the end of a workout, and then in between sets, instead of getting out and being like dicking about on my phone, responding to emails, responding to Slack messages, I was very religious on like timing my breaks between sort of like exercises, which sort of, kept my heart rate higher, and sort of like made it feel a bit more like a workout. And it was all strength based. And those tweaks, combined with like not having 5 takeaways a week, which was where my world was back then, the impact was huge. So it wasn't massive things, it was small things done consistently that had a huge effect.
Who knew, right?
Honestly,
Reduce your takeaways.
I know, right? And the thing is, that I could have, and this is the thing, and this is why we're so passionate about what we do, is I knew all of this stuff. I was a professional athlete. I had access to Google and YouTube and, so on and so forth. I had like lots of people that I knew. I'd had people who had written me plans in that period of time. I was like, oh, will you write me a plan? Will you send it me and send it on Excel, or write me a plan? And none of it mattered until someone was like, right, I'm taking responsibility of you. I'm going to help you. And even with, maybe not a enormously high intellect, but I'm relatively switched on with stuff. So and I couldn't do it until I had someone like stood at the side of me with their arm around my shoulder saying like, right, I'm now responsible for you to get to here. And that was the thing, that the differentiator, which is why, the work that coaches do is so incredibly important, because that's quite often the bit that people need, because we just sometimes just need to be told what to do and pushed,
Yeah. Or I guess I spend a lot of time telling my clients it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to do this. You already know that you want to do it, but you've never actually done it. It's okay. Crack on. Eat a bit more carbs. Have the takeaway, but let's not have 5 a week. Don't worry that you've had a takeaway, but let's do this as well. And I've had it with Nora and other coaches I work with. Don't worry, it's okay to up your prices. It's okay to sell to people. You can sell yourself, and it's good. You should be doing that, So yeah, totally get that. But what did you get? Now, you had the physical changes, but did you find that it improved your work, your productivity, how you presented yourself at work? Because I've got a lot of busy professionals that feel so much more confident when they're presenting. They've got a nice shirt on. They've got that. They've developed aura. Because they've got that confidence. Did you see that
100%.
as well?
It's I won't try and do it while we're on the call, but when you do put up the before and after picture, you'll see. I mean, I decreased by at least 10 years in age. So when you look at 2 photographs, and I'll send you the one that I'm thinking about, where I had a Christmas jumper on, and they were 2 years apart, and it's like I'd gone backwards 10 years. So the confidence that gave me was tremendous, and the energy, like you know, I'm a hard worker. I've always been a hard worker, always, always, always. But it was sort of, I was able to work much harder without it being like a grind. Like when I was back in my most unhealthy days, I would work 12 hours a day, but it would be killing me. And then when I was in a much healthier position and I had to get my workout in the morning, that was like really important that I got it done in the morning and then I could work as long as I needed to. But my energy levels for work were just so much better. And I think it's to do with what you eat as well. So you're eating, obviously you're eating nutritiously and it has a huge impact. But I just felt so much better and more confident. And yeah, I never, it sounds ridiculous and it shouldn't be the reason. Like there's so many things that sit around the edges to it. But I remember the first holiday that I went to, and I went to Ibiza and I landed and the mates who I was with were already there. Bunch of lads I'd grown up with in Bolton, hadn't seen them for a little while, and they were all at Ocean Beach, and they were all there. To be fair, they were in a pretty bad way by the time I got there. I was like 3 hours late. 3 hours is a long time in Ibiza. So I get there and I rock in, and I just remember everyone just being like, "What the hell? Like, what on earth?" And I'd gone from, you know, like being, like I said, you know, squidgy around the edges, no definition, a bit of a belly. And all of a sudden I had like shredded, I was 6-pack. I was jacked, and everyone was just like, what the hell? And, you know, it shouldn't be about aesthetics. I felt great, but, you know, the level of like accomplishment that you've worked really hard. And, you know, there's like a level of like, you know, I look good and I'm really happy about that. And I could, you know, because for years I wouldn't take my t-shirt off and I'd go to the beach. And when I was living in Australia, which is all outdoors, there's no way I would dream of walking down the beach with my shirt off. No way. I had t-shirt on wherever I went. I had permanent t-shirt tan in Australia, permanent t-shirt tan. And that was because I was embarrassed. And I didn't really put the two and two together in my own brain. I just was like, no, why would I take my, you know, and then when you get more confident and you're like, God, I was like embarrassed about that, you know, which was, you know, which you realize when you start looking after yourself is a big change.
I call it unlocking doors, you know, and that could be related to anything like taking your t-shirt off. If you don't want to take your t-shirt off, you've got that locked door in front of you. Well, a locked door is restrictive, isn't it? Like you can't do that. You're not able to do that, even if you wanted to, because it's locked. Or like my big thing was I had a bit of an epiphany moment when I was in my competition prep. I was already shredded. I was like, I think I was probably about a month away from show. So I was in good shape, but I'd never really appreciated what good shape I was in until the point I went into Ralph Lauren. And I do not shop in Ralph Lauren. I walk in, I try some clothes on, and I quickly walk out and try and get it secondhand or Vinted. However, I was in the store and this is the first time I tried on, like, you know, the typical polo shirt. And I put it on, I put a large on because I knew I was a large, too big. I went and got a medium. I put a medium on, and it's the first moment I looked, I was like, fucking hell, I could wear this and be on the cover of a magazine. I was like, and you're right, it's just such a vain vanity moment, but it just highlights how much work you fucking put in, right? And it kind of validates that work.
Mate, that's the thing there is, you know, it's you could all sit here and be like, you know, really, really politically correct and be like, oh, everybody should feel comfortable and and there's a difference between, you know, being healthy and like being like in really good nick and in the kind of nick that I'm sure you were in going into a competition and the way that I was after 10 months of coaching. But it's like you're so right. It's you've put the work in and it makes you feel great. And it's not like you want to like make others feel bad. You're just like really happy with yourselves. We're British. We as Britain are the worst for this. We are so scared of patting ourselves on the back or celebrating things or whatever. We're very insular in that sense. And it's a bit like, you know, want to like compliment each other too much. It's not like, let's not look at our own sense of accomplishment too much. But in those moments, it's like it's just all the hours in the gym, all the sacrifices. Because let's be honest, it's all the meals when you're in a restaurant and you're looking at the menu and it's like there is a sticky toffee pudding there, and this is the third meal I've had out this week. And if I have 3 sticky toffee puddings and custard or ice cream in a week, I'm not gonna be able to get to my goal. So I'll have one, but then the other 2 meals I won't have one, or whatever it is. And they're the decisions that you make in those moments. And when you can sort of see yourself in a different way, and you have that more confidence and you feel and look great, it's like, well, that's what otherwise you're making sacrifices and then you're not getting any upside on the other side of it. So that those moments like you had in Ralph, and they're super important, to make sure that like that hard work pays off.
Yeah. And I always make it a thing is when clients get amazing results, obviously you don't want to force anyone to share those results, but I strongly encourage them, because when you post something on social media, you're going to get a certain proportion of negativity. That's something you just have to accept in daily life. Like you say, it's like the British mentality. It's almost like we want to pull each other down a little bit too much. But I feel like the overwhelming positivity that people get, that's the bit that keep them going for more. It's like, oh, actually, other people see the work that I've just put in. They see that I've lost loads of body fat and this and this. I want to get more of that. Yeah. And one thing I will really make a point of is, even if you're not a coach, even if you're not a fitness specialist, whatever like that, someone might see your progress photos and be inspired to do it themselves. So it's not just about doing it for yourself. Someone sees what you've done. I want to be that. I'm going to change my life like what Dan's done, or what Craig's done, or what Lois has done, or, and I think for me, that's the important bit of sharing the success, is it's going to inspire someone else to do it.
That is such a, so I reckon I've sent Mark 20 referrals, I reckon, since we did the work. And that's from when I published my before and afters, because at the end of the working with Mark, I did a photo shoot, and I published my before and afters, and then, always talking about my fitness journey. And then I had another photo shoot. We did the first one after 6 or 7 months, and then we did another one 4 or 5 months later, I think. Did 2 photo shoots. And then periodically, Mark would he would reshare the moments, the before and afters. So like for the next 2.5 years, every 6 months, I'd be resharing something that he tagged me in. And the amount of people that would be like messaging me, asking me, what did I do? Who did I work with? So on and so forth. And I love it, because not only did it work for me, but I also have my pal who I'm staying with now, Tristan, my partner, a ton of friends who've all, they've all benefit from the same thing. And it's like it's like that whole thing of that virtuous cycle thing. So if you're sharing your journey and you're sharing how it worked for you, then others wanting, you only have to think about High Rocks is a really good example of this, the fitness event High Rocks. It's like, it feels like everyone in the world is doing it, because, it started out and then people were sharing that they were there, and then people are like, oh, wow, that looks like a good event. I want to get to that. And then they go and then they share, and then 10 people around them. And then before you know it, it's like, there's a High Rocks event, and your Instagram feeds exploded with people doing High Rocks. And I love that about the fitness industry, and especially people that are getting into good shape. I would recommend people sharing it, because, for me, touch wood, I never had a single negative comment at all. And anytime I've done that, it's always been, wow, that's an amazing job. Like, how did you do that? And I think for anybody posting that sort of stuff, it's, if you can help other people by sharing your journey. And I think that's what gets a lot of people into being a trainer and a coach too, isn't it? They have their journey and they realize how important it was for them, and they think, well, I want to help others to do this. It's like a natural transition, really, which is Yeah, I totally agree with you. Share as much as you can. Like the more there's like however many percentage of the UK population, and even more so in the world population, that are like overweight, they're static, they're sedentary, and all of these things. So like, let's do a good job of sharing all of these things, so more and more people want to get fit and healthy. You know.
Yeah. So you mentioned sharing, and that kind of leads me on to my next question. Sharing positive things can help people, whether it's be healthy nutrition, training, habits, things like that. If you would like to see 3 things, I'll keep it simple, 3 things in the fitness industry being shared less because you feel like it's got a negative impact on people, what would those 3 things be?
Good question. Oof. A particular demographic of people are about to get it in the neck here, and I'm trying not to. So, shortcuts. So people promoting shortcuts that they haven't taken. That if you're promoting a weight loss tea or a pill to, like a whatever it is, like anything like that effectively like shortcuts the process. Well, is sold as a shortcut of the process to get into physical shape. That's bad. Bad enough if you've invented it. It's even worse if you've not invented it. You've never tried it, but you're promoting it. Like, to me, that's really bad. So definitely get rid of that. Those people are doing that. The other one would be sort of, if you've always been in great shape, there's nothing wrong with that. But you're not allowed to jump on the bandwagon of like, oh, I understand how it feels to be like, overweight, or I understand how it feels to be like super skinny or bulimic, or if you haven't. And some people are just, but we've all met them, haven't we? You're like, you are a specimen. You are just an athletic specimen. You just basically came out of the womb and you just looked great. You were jacked, or you had like all the right, body composition, and you were just like immediately Adonis or like, Greek goddess. Like, just you can't, you're not allowed. You just don't do it, because it's like, oh yeah, look at this, look at how I was before, and it's like, no. That would be one. And then I think lastly, and I'll keep it to 3. I could have a few more, but I'll keep it to
Keep going, mate. Keep going.
The last one are people who promote things that are unrealistic for ordinary people. So, if you are a professional, whether you're like an influencer or a celebrity or a high-end coach or a full-time trainer or a full-time coach, but basically, if fitness is your job, then, when you're promoting things that are unattainable for someone who's got a 9 to 5 or someone who's doing night shifts, and you're promoting like a lot. I see people who are like, yeah, I went on this like 3-hour trail run, and then I did this, and I'm like, this person's got a 9 to 6 job and they've got 2 kids. Like, how is you promoting this as like a health? Here's my healthy morning routine. Here's my, like, okay, well, if you can afford an ice bath and you can afford to have a garden and you can afford to have like a private chef prepare or whatever it is, and all the things that are like where people have got access to things that are not accessible for most people, and they're promoting it as like normal, that I think is damaging, because then you sort of like, as a normal person, you're like, oh yeah, I need to get an ice bath. I need to get, whatever it is. And it's like, no, you don't. Neither does that person. That's just what they've got. That's what they've got access to. So they're utilizing that. You don't need that, actually. It would be more beneficial if they said, here's me doing my ice bath routine, but if you've not got an ice bath, here's an alternative. Or here's me doing my morning 3K run, but if you've got kids, maybe try this or something. So they, make it a bit more relatable, because I think people then sort of get, you just think everyone's living this life that you're not able to do, because you're working really hard, or you're doing lots of hours, or you're working night shifts, or you've got kids, and it's like, and am I even going to get a chance to have an ice bath, or whatever it is? I'm using ice bath as an example.
Yeah.
They'd be the 3 things, mate.
I'm going to give you my one. because I could go on for hours. Yeah, if anyone wants to go to my TikTok, Apex Fitness Coaching on TikTok, very vibrant community on there. More of my TikToks are about kind of debunking the bullshit out there.
Yeah.
So the bad supplements, the this, the that, and people telling you can do this to regulate your hormones and all that bollocks. That's what my TikTok's about. Instagram, bit different. So if you want to follow me on Instagram as well, there's lots of different content on there. But my big thing is people worrying about or preaching about the finite, minuscule things that'll give somebody perhaps 0.01% improvement without addressing the low-hanging fruit. Like, let's not talk about these supplements that's going to do fuck all in relative terms. Let's look at the takeaways. Let's look at getting a bit more fruit in. Yeah, let's not worry about the types of sugars that you fucking have in. Let's just get a bit more fruit in, because that's good. Takeaways, not so good, isn't it? But let's not worry about all that shit stuff that you're trying to sell with your discount code.
It's such, and the thing on that's like, I think people think, and maybe it does to certain people, but like, does complexity sell? It's like, you know, it's sort of like, hey, eat less, walk more. Or that's option one. Or option two is let's talk about the acids, the acidity levels in this. Or like you mentioned there, it's like, maybe people are like, oh yeah, that sounds like scientific and chemicals, and yeah, so Alex Huberman did a podcast on something about that, and it's like, yeah, for people who are running ultra marathons, like it is not for John Smith, who just needs to eat less, as you said, takeaways in a week, and that will have a much more of an effect than like how many BCs double A's he's taking on it.
Yeah. Do you find, and I think you hit the nail on the head, people like to overcomplicate things, because if it sounds complicated and you're the only person that can give you the answer, well, I've got to use that person. If it's super simple, like my thing is, I probably will never reach my true potential as a business person, because it is so simple. Just eat slightly less, move slightly more. But that sounds pretty boring, right? It's boring, but it's the shit that you need to do.
I think it's how you package it, and the reality is that people, we have to appreciate that there is a human psychology of things. It's like the thing when you go to the supermarket and it's like, right, you're thinking to yourself, okay, it's been 3 months and my tomato ketchup has run out. I need some tomato ketchup. And you go to the supermarket and you're faced with, right, okay, it's £2.99 for one, but hang on a minute, it's 3 for £5.49 here. Or like it's like 3 for like £8.49. And you're like, oh, hang on a minute, well, I'm saving 50p here if I get 3 tomato ketchups. It's taking you 3 months to finish one. And what does everybody do? You walk away with 3 tomato ketchups, and you're back home, you're putting them in the fridge, and you're like, I win. You're like, no, he did a Heinz one, and so did Tesco. And it's that human psychology thing of like, we are the way that we are. And I think any sort of good marketing or any business is sort of like tapping into those bits of human emotion. So, if you said just exercise more and eat less, that obviously is like, anyone knows that. But then if you can sort of keep the same values, but just message them in a slightly different way, not to put fancy names on it or fancy labels, but, eat less, exercise more. What does that actually do for you? What is the impact and what is the end result? And then let's talk about that. So it's not, the method of delivery is similar each time, but you can get people excited about what can happen if they get there in the end. And that's the way I think that we sort of keep our core values without sort of trying to overcomplicate the delivery, but we can still sort of like tap into that human psychology on like, well, how do we package this to make it sound exciting and make it sound fun, make it all about the impact, make it all about the result that they get. And I know you do this on with your clients as well. And it's like, you get people excited in the journey and what comes at the end of it. And we just don't want to sort of like, if you lead with the complicated stuff, probably attract the wrong types of clients as well, to be fair.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. Now, I'm just conscious on time because notoriously I just overrun. So I've got two things that I want to
Yes.
ask you. If you come from that marketing background, and for me, marketing was the biggest issue that I had in sales, but there's going to be lots of other people out there. I've spoke to a lot of them. If you could give your three best, not tips, because I think tips are a little bit wishy-washy, but if there was three strategies that you would give to somebody to instantly improve their marketing and sales, what would you advise to a brand new coach in the industry?
So first things first, people buy from people. So, regardless, and the modern day and age that we live in now, brands are actually getting superseded by people. You only have to look at, if you think about the big brands like, your Facebook, or you look at Tesla, and you think about the people who lead them now, so people are now you wouldn't have thought about that years ago with the larger companies who nobody knew anyone that worked there. So we're starting to get used to buying from people, and people are the ones who show up. So for someone to be present, show up on stories, try and, if you can, get confident, either face the camera if you can, or highlight your journey and highlight more about you and your personal life. If you've got a dog and it's cute and you love dogs, don't be afraid to sort of like show that as well as your content, because people are like, well, I like dogs, and they engage with that. So I'd say the first thing is being you and showing up as you would definitely be one. Second one on a sales side is like practice. And this is one thing that's, if you're going to get, the better someone is at consultation calls, or the better someone is at sort of being in the DMs with a potential client and turning it into a discovery call. If you get really good at that, you don't have to worry too much about marketing. So the better you are at converting people who are like showing an interest to client, it takes the pressure off. Then you don't need to generate loads and loads of leads. So if you can get really good, but the way to get good at that is by practicing. So understanding the framework of your consultation call, recording the calls that you have with clients, and then watching them back. And it's horrible to do, despite this conversation. And I'm sure the way that I come across, like I don't, no one likes the sound of their own voice. When you watch a call back, it's like, everyone's like hiding under the tail. Oh, God, did I really say that? Oh, I can't believe I said that. Where was I going with that? But it's really important to sort of learn like what went well and what didn't. Because sometimes you finish a call and you're like, nailed that. They're definitely signing up. And then they ghost you, and you're like, ooh, it must be them. Must be some of the problem there. But then when you watch the call back and you're like, they said right at the beginning that they were having problems with finances, and I just didn't hear them. And I asked another question, and then I told them the price. And so that was the problem. And I didn't solve that towards the end of the call. So second one would be to watch your calls back. And then third one, and I'm going to have to say this, but get a coach, like, really like reach out and have someone help you with sales and marketing, because trying to figure it out on your own is, one, really difficult. It takes a lot longer. And three, you can't identify your blind spots behind you. So you're cruising, and it's really difficult to know what's not working. And so someone says like, hey, have you tried it this way? And you're like, hadn't even thought about that. They will be my 3 tips: show up, record your calls and watch them back, and then get someone to help.
Right, brilliant. And yeah, it's definitely things that you can obviously tell that you've put that into Fortis, and you encourage your coaches to coach other coaches like that, because that's what I've been doing. So yeah, fucking brilliant, mate. So last question.
Yes.
Because we're at 50 minutes.
Sorry. But Dan, let's do 30 minutes. Sorry, that's my bad.
So what is next for Dan? What is the next 3 years of for Dan? 'Cause you've said at the beginning you had 24 years of experience in a 5-year block. You've worked with this company, that company, you've created your own company, you're traveling the fucking world, like, and you've got perfect hair.
Thank you.
Like, what's next for Dan?
That's a really good question. So I feel like we're at Fortis. We're about to move on to a very, very different part of our journey. So what we've been working on so far, and for anyone who's like listening on this, will be a sort of like I guess a bit of a carrot dangle. But we've been working on a lot of things so far, and we've got elements of technology. We acquired a business recently, and we have some tech already with the hub, and also we have business coaching. And what we're doing now is we're working on the next part of our business to try and like weld a lot of these different worlds together. So quite excited on how we do that. So at Fortis, we're about to move on to the next phase of our business growth, which should allow us to help more coaches and more trainers and provide a true all-in-one solution. So we're really excited about that and what that means, which is pretty cool. We're starting the process on that. And then I think in terms of like where I'm actually like putting roots. I've decided on Bali, so my partner and I are sort of settling in Bali. We're going to be there probably from February or April, and we're actually going to have like a house where we can like leave stuff, because at the minute everything comes with me. Like my Ceragun comes everywhere with me all the time. Like, and like my drone is always in my backpack, and it's like I just want to be able to leave stuff somewhere and call it home.
You didn't fancy Bolton then?
Do you know what? It crossed my mind, and then I was like, I don't know if I thought better of it. No, I think I genuinely, I think being in the vicinity of like love my family to bits, but if I was if I was too close to them for too long, I think they'd kill me or I'd kill them. So yeah, so I'd say we've got some pretty exciting things for Fortis coming up. We're not even started yet. We've done a really good job in the last few years, but we've learned loads, and we're sort of in this. If I think about the trajectory of a company, I would say like 3 years in, we're like here, and we've just got such a huge way to go to do what we really want to do, which is make sure that every single trainer and coach in the world has access to everything they need to build and grow the business that they deserve. And in order to do that, we've got a long way to go. So we're still early on, mate.
But it's exciting times, and I was wondering if there's any little, is there any bombshells you can drop as a little exclusive?
Is there any exclusives that I can sort of that I can allude to?
Just for the barbells and bagels, mate. Very important
Of course,
podcast.
yeah, mate.
I class myself as a journalist more than anything.
Inside scoop. What I would say is that right now, to work with Fortis, we have a solution for people where it's sort of, we basically have one solution for everyone that we work with, and it's the same solution for everybody. Hot off the press, and definitely not public knowledge yet. In 2024, we want to try and create different ways to work with us for people who are at different stages of their journey. So right now, when someone comes to work with us, they sort of have to be at a certain point. They have to be able to financially afford it. They have to be the right level of committed. They have to be at the right stage of their career. They have to have, the right mindset on where they want to go. And they also have to have a good understanding of sort of like where they actually want to get to. And actually the whole landscape of trainers, that's actually quite a small amount. And what we're finding is that there are people who sit around the edges of that, and we actually don't have anything for them, which is disappointing for us and disappointing for them. So we've been working behind the scenes on ways to help and support people in different ways in 2024, so that we're able to sort of help a wider group of people, because that's sort of like it ties into our greater goal of being able to have something for everybody, really.
Fantastic, mate. Well, look, thanks for your time, Dan. Now, if there's coaches out there watching this, I'm sure there will be. if they wanted to get in touch, if they wanted to start promoting the business and growing the business, where do they find Fortis?
So best place on Instagram. So this.is.fortis. Drop us there, or me. I'm Daniel.Stott on Instagram. Follow me, connect with me. I'm like, we genuinely, like, it's you know, when you've got a title or a role like founder or CEO and stuff like that, I'm just an ordinary bloke. Ping me a message, ask me a question, just be like, what do you recommend of this? If anyone who's listening has like a specific challenge in their business, I love shit like that. But feel free to ping me and just be like, I've got a customer who, or I've got like a lead who's giving me this objection. What should I do? Or I was thinking about doing this as a strategy. What do you think about it? Like, you don't have to be a coach working with Fortis. Just ping me that, and I'm happy to sort of like jump in, love that sort of stuff.
Fantastic. I'll put all the links in the description. This will be on Spotify and all iTunes and all the rest of it. So we'll get all the links in there, and hopefully people will be able to find it. But mate, thank you so much for your time. It's been an awesome chat. No doubt we could have gone on for another hour, but the coffees are calling.
Appreciate that, mate. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Fantastic. See you in a bit, pal.
That's ISO. Rack it up, I gotta build up the bank to make me a safe house. Shake it up, she got her hands on her knees and she bringing the cake out. Smoke it up, I got some gas, some packs, some